In Europe, high up in the mountainous region of the central Italian Alps, stands a large cathedral-like structure.
This huge structure is set in this glorious natural setting. There's mountains, there's lakes. And as you move around the side of it, you look and go, uh-oh, what happened here?
Years ago, the central section of this great wall was ripped out.
Was it bombed? Was there an earthquake? This would have been an event that caused a whole lot of disruption and death.
So what happened? And is new evidence challenging our understanding of its catastrophic demise? The story unfolded in the unstable years around the First World War, when Italy was struggling to catch up with the industrialized powers of Europe. To energize the growth of new factories, rich capitalists invested in hydroelectric power stations in the mountainous region of the Alps. These are the remains of one of those projects, the Gleno Dam. But it was built in troubled times when anarchists were staging occupations of factories nearby and even planting bombs at targeted sites.
Italy, in the north, was a place of great political unrest. You had the capitalists who were effectively under siege from a communist movement that had a whole different direction in mind. Turmoil and violence, those were a day-to-day occurrence.
The man who financed the project was from the Gleno family, a family of wealthy industrialists from Milan. Gleno constantly criticized the local workers that he did employ. His preference was to use Milanese workers instead of local workers, which caused a lot of bad feeling.
So if the people that are trying to put this structure together are not working together in unison, then you are going to get a problem in the actual end product.
Construction began in 1917 with the First World War in full flow. But a few years into the job, the costs soared. The design was changed drastically. And the Gleno family cut corners by using cheaper, lower-grade materials.
Construction of the dam used poor quality concrete, reinforced with First World War anti-grenade netting, neither of which were appropriate for this kind of structure. Whenever any of those workers complained about those materials, they were immediately fired.
Foundations are critical to all structures. If you start to put in scrap metals, you don't really know what the composition of those metals are. They may have rusted, and so then when you're pouring concrete around that, you might not get a very good bind between the metal and the concrete. And that is really, really important to maintain the strength of the structure.
So was this a disaster waiting to happen? In October 1923, with the dam built, the reservoir was filled to capacity for the first time. But problems had already begun to surface.
In the autumn of the year, there was an extremely heavy rainfall, and this caused some minor leaks in the dam that should have served as a warning, but in fact, they were regarded as, that's not a problem.
As the downpours continued, the water level soon crept above the maximum permitted depth, testing the dam's structural integrity to the limit. By December 1st, it seemed to have reached breaking point.
It was just another day when the caretaker was carrying out his routine checks on the dam, and then he felt a tremor. 45 minutes later, the whole dam burst.
According to news reports at the time, there was a violent blast of air. Then water rushed down into the valley below.
over 1 billion gallons of water suddenly forced its way through the opening at a speed of 45 miles per hour. Carnage was inevitable.
The water would have been like a giant tidal wave, a tsunami with debris just rushing through the valley below, causing devastation wherever it went.
The flood wave took about 45 minutes to crash its way along down the valley. The flood destroyed 3 villages, 5 power stations, and countless numbers of isolated buildings and factories along the valley.
By the time the waters had settled, over 350 people had been killed. The blame was directed towards the Vigano family and the dam's engineers, but they protested their innocence. In the court case that followed, inconsistencies between the findings of the prosecution and defense meant that on appeal, the defendants were acquitted. For almost a century, this was how the story was laid to rest. But it would begin to be rewritten when Benedetto Bonomo, the current mayor of one of those destroyed towns, uncovered some new evidence.
Just after the collapse of the dam, in the prison of the city of Cremona, an inmate made a very important claim, saying that he was the head of a group of subversives who were putting bombs everywhere in what was the rising industrial area. I quickly found the document that says the judge had actually asked the most renowned experts in the world to do a survey, which showed that a bomb had exploded there.
The survey proved that water pressure alone could never have caused the collapse. Then it was revealed that 75 kilograms of dynamite had recently been stolen from the construction site. It seems that sabotage was the only explanation.
Because of this lack of integrity between the materials and the foundations, it's possible that these explosives actually caused a much bigger event than, the saboteurs actually intended.
It could have been a disgruntled worker who wanted revenge for the Vigano family. Or it could have been an anarchist, because they were blowing up sort of power stations and power plants all around the north of Italy at that time.
But a final theory suggests total destruction may not have been the intention at all. The idea could have been just to create a small leak and thereby force the dam to be decommissioned.
So no one knows for sure, but all we do know is an explosion of that kind should not have had the devastating effect that it did.
The cover-up had aimed to protect the government from embarrassment after a spate of bombings in the area meant they should have been guarding the dam.
Telling the truth 95 years later, it's something that hurts. People looked death in the eyes. A whole district was completely swept away. Whole families were erased. The whole story of a small village was buried forever.